Hi there, and welcome to the SoCal VW scene at the Schley Brothers Museum, brought to you by Cool Tech Motorworks, and with the great help of my engineer, Rick Meredith, and my media guy, Jeffrey Hicken, and my beautiful co-host, Amber Zent.
Hi.
We like to talk about what's been happening in the SoCal scene. We like to talk about some of the things that happened in March. Primarily, I'd like to talk about the drag day, and I'm going to pass it over to Amber, and she'll tell you what happened for her at the Hot VW's drag day, and then we'll move on.
There's never moving on. It's always the next race. Hot VW's drag day was awesome. We got down to the finals, and my girlfriend and fellow racer Michelle and I were in the finals together again, which was always super intense with us. We are very competitive, but we were very good friends. So we got to the finals. I kind of lost the race myself. I'm just going to say I came in runner up. That first 60 feet, you can see it on my time slip. I got a little thrown off I thought she had to wait longer for the delay for the brackets, but congratulations, Michelle, on winning drag day, and I'm coming for you at Bug-In.
Yeah, well, the really cool thing is that the year before last year, in 22, she was the champion. So here she is back, making waves, knocking down people, and in a good position to win a championship this year.
Well, even last year I was runner up. I was 12 points away from taking Tristan, who just killed it. Congratulations on a good season, Tristan.
Yeah, that was an amazing season for her too. Okay, then. So the DKK Carbs and Coffee on Tustin Boulevard at the Orange Detail Shop happened the third Sunday. Happens every month, the third Sunday of the month. Looking forward to the one in April. We'll talk a little bit about that too. But I went to that. I went to the drag day, of course, because I have a job at the drag day. I run the drag racing part. And we have
you do very well. Thank you for that.
We have a really great time. We're going to spend a little more time on what's happening in currently the Silverado camp out. It's going on right now. The Hot Dog Fred Chili cook-off is going on. Started the same time that we started today. So if you're not out there yet, you can brave the rain. Go on out there, and Rich Kimball said his chili's going to win. We'll wait and see.
See, I'm stuck at Brave the Rain. I'm so tired of the rain right now in Southern California. Like, I pay a lot of sunshine tax. I want it back.
Yeah, absolutely. This is sunny Southern California, except the whole week was really cool till, of course, we get to the weekend and the rain comes.
It's the end of March. It's been 4 days. We've had 4 days of perfect. That's not fair.
So we're going to talk about what's happening in April, and then we're going to get to our very special guest, my dear friend and VW crazy guy like myself and like Amber, Gregg Bunch. So we'll get to him here in just shortly. But in April, one of my favorite events happens the 13th at Wolfsburg West. It's called the Spring Fest, and I will have a job there. I'm going to help Debbie Wagaman, Mrs. Hot Dog Fred. We're going to bring the whole rig out and sell off brats and hot dogs. So stop by, say hello, bring your car. It's put on by the Inland Valley VW Club. They do a really good job. And Wolfsburg West usually has donuts, donut. So
I haven't been to that one, so I plan to come this year.
It's awesome.
And I also love the resurgence or the keeping alive the Hot Dog Fred. And Debbie's amazing, right? So I look forward to popping in for that and supporting that too.
There's a couple more events in April. The Kelly Park Spring Meet, that's in San Jose. I haven't made it to it, but a lot of people have. It's a vintage show primarily, but they have the Red Barn swap meet, lots of stuff going on. So if you're a VW freak out there and you want to find your way up to San Jose on the 21st, or actually earlier than that, the swap starts around the 19th and the 20th, and then the actual meet is on the 21st. They call it a meet because in Germany, that's what a show is. It's a meet, as I've experienced in Europe.
Yep.
Anyway, then there's the Spring Fling and Madeira. I did go to that last year. Rich Kimball and I went and visited Vic Wilson, who's the original purveyor of the Bug-In. And we visited him and we went to Madeira, and that was a great show. So I highly recommend it. Then we finish off, it's on actually April, but it's the spring picnic at Canyon RV Park or Featherly Park, it's sometimes called. It's out there in the canyon off the 91.
It's in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
Like you're driving along and it's all industrial and you get off the freeway and then there's this park.
Yeah. Ryan, who spends his time living in
Ryan
Costa
Owsley,
Rica
yeah.
and surfing, comes up every year to put on this show. It's his show. So I always attend. And we're probably going to do the hot dog Fred thing there too. So
make sure you come by my camp because I'm going to get all set up with all the San Diego people. We're going to take over.
It's the locals gathering. So remember, the DKK Carbs and Coffee will be on the 21st of April at the Orange Detail. And I also want to mention that April 6th, the Panzers and Hot VWs Magazine are throwing a Cars and Coffee at the new magazine headquarters. That's April 6th. So I hope to see you all there. We're going to just crowd that parking lot up. We're going to have us a really good time.
Yes.
So without delay, last thing I want to mention is a little update on the Winter Nationals. David Starks and Ashlyn Sacchetti went out there racing SSVX, which is a super stock class that Hot VWs fit in now. And I appreciate that they're out there racing because if some of us don't go, the class will go away because NHRA, I'm happy they have a class for us, but they treat us like stepchildren. But anyway, Ashlyn went out first round and David Starks got to the second round and then he went out. He told me he made a mistake. He underestimated how good the track was and he had a big bog. So, but we're happy they're out there racing with VWs. We love the representation. Now then, our special guest, Mr. Gregg Bunch is with us. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Hey guys.
We're going to let Amber question him a little bit.
I'm
and
gonna-
then we're going to let him talk a little.
I'm going to give props really quick to all you creative people out there. I had this shirt gifted to me by one of the club members' wives. She does lots of crafts and it's got the Red Racing logo on it. So I love it. Thank you, Karina and Kyle. So I just wanted to add that in real quick because that's part of my ensemble today. Red Racing is my my race jargon. Now, switching gears to Greg. I've met you a couple years ago and I don't know a whole lot about you, but I found out something very interesting because, you have Ron, who is, the godfather of cowlook, but it turns out that we may not have a godfather of cowlook named Ron Flemming had it not been for Gregg Bunch's persistence. You brought him into the DKP crew, right?
Yep. Hey, welcome everybody. Mark, Paul, thank you for your place. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Tom, Shin,
Look
Jeff,
at the mic.
Robert. Oh, yeah. I'm not as good at this as these
That's
two
okay.
people are, but yeah.
So,
In 1965, I got out of high school, was going to college at Fullerton Junior College. I decided I wanted a Volkswagen. My dad said, let's buy one from Germany because it's cheaper. And it was $1,300.
Wow.
And it was going to be a 66 when I got it, but it was in 65 when I ordered it. And what was my question?
the question was,
How did you get me down there
Oh,
and into the Panzers?
Okay, so I got my car. It took 3 months to come over on a boat. And they brought it into Long Beach Harbor. And I thought, oh, I'm going to drive down there. And there sits my beautiful car. And when we went over the bridge, there was about 5,000 Volkswagens. So it's like my heart just sank because I couldn't even figure out which one was mine. Anyway, I got it. It took several weeks to get all the creosote or whatever it was they covered with it because it was on a boat and it was uncovered. And it took kerosene. It was horrible. Anyway, got it home and had to get it serviced. And since I didn't buy it from a dealership, I had to pick an independent. And I guess fortunately I went, since I lived in Tustin, I went to Santa Ana Westphalia Motors and lucky enough to get Ron as a mechanic. I didn't know him from Adam, and we struck up a friendship over the many times I went there. And
that was an easy sell, right? He's like, "Oh, sure, sign me up,"
yeah,
right?
he had this what year?
Black 56 oval window.
And I thought it was really cool because mine was stock, and I was hoping to make it something. And I was going to Fullerton Junior College, and I saw a bunch of cars. And one day I got a flyer on the window that said, "Come and join our club, the Kleiner Panzers." So, having gone back and forth to Westphalia many times, I kept asking Ron. I said, "You need to come. This is really a good group." And he told me, "No, every time, every time, absolutely not. I'm not doing Volkswagens on my evenings and my weekends."
He's not stubborn at all, is he?
I'm not. Finally, I think he got pissed, and he said, "God damn it, I'm going to go one of your stinking meetings, and don't bother me after that." I guess that one meeting's all it took to get him hooked, because now it's there's a whole generation of careers with Greg Aronson and all the guys, and Fat and the whole thing, and really it was all stemmed from Der Kleiner Panzers. So
Very cool.
Yeah, so let me elaborate a little bit here. So he came, meaning Greg, he came to Westphalia Motors, and I was working on his car. And then one time he said, "I want a Porsche clutch." In those days, that was a 180 millimeter Porsche clutch. And I said, "Yeah, no problem. We can do that and do that in one day." So we put it in the car. And that afternoon, I think you came with Jim Holmes. He came to pick the car up. And I said, "Listen, these things are what I call pretty snappy, the clutch. You got to be careful. Even with a stock motor, if you wind her up and pop the clutch, you could break an axle. So be careful." After driving it for a week or so, it softens up a little bit and it's easier on it, but it'll still be fun, still be good. The same afternoon, that I got
There's a nice
call.
smirk over there.
Called Jim, and I said, "Let's go out behind Nabisco in Anaheim and go down the road." So we got there, we lined up. It was a big empty road, and we both took off, and I'm sure I probably got some air, but that's as far as I went. I just went ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk,
Oh
ka-thunk,
no.
and he went. Phew. So tail between my legs, I called Ron and said, "I'm going to have to be towed in." And he goes, "Why?" I said, "Well, I did what you told me not to do." I did what you told me not to do. And so when I got it there, they found a broken axle. And I think the owner,
Rudy Hoffner.
Rudy Hoffman, had never, and he was a mechanic from Germany for many, many years, and he'd never seen a broken axle. I had 9-inch wide Goodyear Blue Streak racing tires.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a big engine, but it just was too much for the brand new clutch. So
Wow.
but that was for me, we missed all about the Kleiner Panzers. That was the end of my career because I was being chased down by the United States government for a stint in the U.S. Army. And so I joined the Air Force just at that same time. And I had to pay $600 or $700 for the broken axle, and I couldn't afford it. So I had to sell parts off my car, and I sold almost everything to most of the guys in the club. And then I sold my car, and then I went off to
So what did you do in the Air Force?
Air Force. Photography, started out in black and white photography, then color photography, and ended up in aerial photography, mostly over the East Germany, shooting.
I was going to say,
Wow.
You were in Germany for your service.
Shooting aerial photography at night over East Germany, taking pictures of troop movements.
Wow. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The service is it's always impressive, and that's a lot of sacrifice. So thank you for that.
Living in Europe was probably my third favorite thing in the world. One was marrying my wife, Pam.
So smart. Good answer.
55 years, 56 next month.
Oh, I've seen some of the
Yeah.
pictures. You are a lucky man.
And then DKP was probably my most memorable experience of my life. And I didn't have, I was a pre-Cal look. The car I drove today is sort of a replica of it. There was no Cal look then. It was wasn't even lowered. It didn't even have bumpers off. They hadn't done that yet. The club was really about clean cars. Didn't have to be an original paint, but they had to be clean, nice cars,
Single color.
single color, and the member had to be a certain kind of person. They were very selective about that. It had nothing to do with speed because we hadn't developed that thing. We didn't have this group in our club yet in the early days, in 66, 67. It was starting to morph into it, but at that time it was chrome rims, Porsche hubcaps, exhaust, single exhaust,
Glass pack.
glass packed muffler with a bell tip or a megaphone. Tinted windows were pretty important, but there was no window tinting in those days. We had to go to a plastics company, which is still in business today. It's where I went to get my windows now. You cut out a piece of colored plexiglass and you pin it on the inside of the back of your window. And that's how we tinted our windows then. So that's sort of a pre-Cal look car. It was a little different than a stock car, but not really the Cal look yet. But I had already, when I went in the service in 67, it was starting to change. And when I got out in 72, unfortunately, their Kleiner Panzers had sort of gone its way. And I was a different person when I came back. So I didn't even get involved in any Volkswagen people or events or anything. I was married. I was trying to get a job and survive.
So what brought you back? Clearly, everything you're wearing and everything in front of you and the tablecloth we're wearing is DKP. Big part of your life. What kind of pulled you back in?
Back in the club.
Yeah.
Okay, so DKP, Der Kleiner Panzers, the small tanks, was the club started as VW Unlimited.
Was more a social club than.
And that was in 64. And Gary Huggins, Pete Dayton, and several others, only a half a dozen people, they decided in 64 to change the name to Der Kleiner Panzers. And that was primarily because of Gary Huggins. He was a German collector of German stuff. He wasn't a Nazi, but he collected that kind of thing, firearms and all kinds of things. And so this is an original, a mayor of a town in Germany. This was on his license plate, and it happens to be the exact replica of what our logo was made from. The design is the same, the eagle, everything else, just no swastika. It's got a Volkswagen
Emblem in it.
below the eagle.
Yep.
And so that's how the name of the club came about. And then there was, I don't know, there was Gary Huggins, Pete Dayton, John Lazenby, and several others that started the club and got it going. And it was a good group of people. It was always, there was 2 meetings a week, usually on Wednesday night and Sunday night. It's made up of probably between 16 and 21-year-olds. Most of them had no wives, no children. no jobs,
Mhm.
no money.
Sounds like 16 to 21-year-olds.
So everything that we did was sort of done very cheaply. Like I didn't like my white interior, so Mike Johnson and I went down and bought black Naugahyde spray paint, and we
And dyed it.
spray painted the interior black because we couldn't afford new upholstery. So that's sort of how the old days were. It was different. Gas was at 25 cents a gallon. I remember my wife had to buy her own Cokes when we went to drive-ins and stuff because I was saving my money for my car parts. Only she wasn't my wife, she's my girlfriend, but
It's not an uncommon thing.
that was my important thing, was to spend my money on my car. A thought came to me that I'd forgotten about. My father-in-law was a great man, but he thought Volkswagens was silly. And when he heard about us having fast cars, he said that is silly because he had a 650 Triumph motorcycle and Mercedes and all kinds of stuff. And so I decided one day to call my friend Don Crane, bring him over and give my father-in-law a little ride. What was the engine?
Don Crane was one of the first guys, and I helped him to have dual 48 IDAs. And the motor at the time was a 74 stroke by 88. So it's a little bigger than 2-liter.
So they lived on Magnolia in Anaheim, and Don came over, no interior, just the driver's seat. And
Useless weight.
we put an orange crate in the back for my father-in-law and send him down the street. And if you ever watched Ford versus Ferrari, where Mr. Ford is in the car and what happened to that's what happened to my father-in-law. He came back white as a sheet, and he never spoke poorly about Volkswagen again. Don just shook him to the bones.
Wow.
So then went off to the service, came home, got a house and whatever, and so on and so forth. And DKP2, the second generation, started in 75 to 80 with a few people. They got permission from the older group to rejuvenate it, and it didn't last long, unfortunately. And then in 1990, the third generation, which is still going now,
Of which we're members of.
They came and asked permission, and they're doing very well right now, which kept us all alive. And in 1990, I sort of discovered, now let's see, I would have been about 50 years old. So I started to then connect with my old friends, and I got the bug. I was going to the races with him to help him in his race car.
It's very contagious.
And, one day we were at Phoenix, and he was out racing his car, and I went over to the car show to go to the bathroom, and I came out, and when I opened the door, there sat that car that's out there now, is a Sea Blue 64, and it was for sale. And so I bought it, towed it home, and
heard you missed the race. Ron was out there,
Yeah, I missed
banging
the race.
gears, and you were
Missed the
off playing with
race.
cars.
missed the race. And I've remade it to look exactly like it did in 1966, with the exception of the Goodyear Blue Stick Racing tires. I couldn't find those. By the way, those were 9 inches wide, and to do that, you had to get I went to Johnny's Speed and Chrome, had 5.5-inch Chevrolet rims, and the center removed, and the center of a Volkswagen rim put in an offset so that you could wear
It'd
that
fit,
big of
yeah.
a tire. And then the other thing is that one of these pictures in the magazines, you'll see there's a little thin strip of aluminum around the rear wheel well. And a lot of people, especially in Europe, want to know, what is that thing? Well, my tires stuck out, and the police would give you a ticket for
Yep.
tires sticking out
Yep.
in those days. So you screwed on a little strip of aluminum on the outside edge, which made it even with the tire, and everything was fine.
And the good thing too is it stopped any water you went through from going up on the side of the car and all that. Kind of like a vertical mud flap.
Yeah, sounds like it.
What else?
So I have this I love that you brought so many memorabilia. I have something here called the DKP trivia. And I just have to know some of these questions. May I check your trivia knowledge?
In 1990,
90.
and this is one of the things we did when we gathered around the picnic table to put this together. I don't hope I can remember some of them. I don't know.
Okay.
That was a 25-year reunion.
And
Well,
next year
I
will
saw
be
this-
a 60-year reunion.
I saw this on the table and I was like, "Oh, this is my script for today." So I'm gonna pick your brain a little bit. He's like, "Oh man, okay, I know who wants to claim this, but do we really know who had the longest hair back then?
We think it was him.
We think so. Okay,
Clear down to his butt. Oh, but when I got married
But-
in 1969, he had long hair. And my mother was old school. And she said, if you're going to get married and he's going to be your best man, he can't have long hair. So if you think going into your father-in-law and asking him for permission for his daughter's hand, go to your father, go to your mother, go to your best friend and ask him if you can cut off his hair for your wedding. So I did that. And he was kind enough to agree to do it. And there's a picture here somewhere.
Yeah.
You guys got it.
I think it's going to get put up on our page too.
Well, it was okay because this was back in the day when I could grow hair.
And not just in your nose and ears.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And other places.
I don't want to know about that. I love you, Ron.
But
okay, so there's one here that I'm interested. What did a thumb on the forehead signify?
You get a fine for 5 cents in a club meeting if you
forgot to go.
if you farted, or if you spoke out of turn, or if you were late, you'd get charged a nickel. And a nickel, remember, a gas was a quarter of a gallon for a gallon, 25 cents for a gallon. So a nickel was, was significant.
But we always used to buy white pump for $29.9.
So wait, how does this, like, is it like across? It's like this. Okay. I'm going to reuse that. Thank you. And I realize I'm putting myself at risk by asking some of these questions because who owned a checkered bra?
I know.
It was on the front of their car.
Oh.
I don't remember.
Stan Davis.
I thought that was going to be way more scandalous than it was.
We also had most of the members, half the members, had nicknames. That started after I left, probably because of this guy. I have a list here that's, 6 or 7 pages long of
Members.
I tried to make a list of all the members ever in the club. And DKP 1, I've come up with 130 members.
Over a period of time.
Now remember, I was only in for 2 years. So even though it lasted for 8 or 9 years, I was only in for 2. So, but I'm still a member. So this 130 was never all at one time. It was fluctuating. DKP second generation had 33, and the third generation right now has about 57. So
with some overlap, some people.
So I got names, first names and last names. I have whether they're deceased or not. I have their wives' names, address, phone number, email, so on and so forth, and nicknames. And one of his articles a couple of months ago in Hot VW had quite a few of the nicknames that
We have that.
assigned our people.
We have that too in our locals club, and it's everything from like, rascal to whatever. And we keep
had-
a spreadsheet
We had
on it
Howdy
too.
Doody and
That was Mike Mahaffey, who
um,
unfortunately resembled Howdy Doody.
Oh no.
yeah, he's freckles. I didn't have one.
You didn't have a nickname, Greg?
I didn't because they didn't start nicknames till after I'd left.
Well, I keep hearing bunch and lunch. We're doing lunch
Oh,
today,
well,
right?
Maybe they
Oh.
did talk about me after I was gone.
Well, I remember that, I fought with you. I didn't want to come. I didn't come. My story was I had a 65 Mustang at one time. I was in the Fullerton Henchman, and I was over the whole idea of a car club. But I did show up, and I'm going to admit, this gentleman and his persistence charted the course of my life. I wouldn't be sitting here now and any of the things and gone to Europe and the European Bug In and the club and the cow look and those things, because once I was in, I dove in, and because of his influence, and unfortunately he had to go away to the service, and so we carried on and we developed what's later called the cow look. We never called it that. Hobby W's magazine called it that in 1975. We just did our cars the way we wanted to. And because I was a performance-oriented guy and I gathered people around me in the club like Don Crane and Jim Holmes, they had like interests. And so we started all of a sudden, and that's what ended up, you brought the top 10 board, right? You have a picture of the top. We had a top 10 board.
Thanks, Shin. Don't worry. If you ever come to be part of the peanut gallery, we will put you to work as well.
And it was quite the cool thing in your repertoire to make the top 10 board. And at the time, I mean, we had people here that were running in the 12s and 13-second range with street cars. So, and all of this that I was involved in is your fault. And I thank you for it. Time for you to question him. So fire some questions at him.
Okay. So I love all of this. I did not, and I've said this before, right? I did not have a history in Volkswagens. I met my husband. He had one. We've been together going on 17 years, and he still has one, and I have 4. So I've dove in like head first, kind of like he said. Like once you get in, you're like, just do it. You said that you, growing up, you wanted a Volkswagen. Like, why? Were they just
I
like
had
the coolest
Chevy,
car?
I had
or-
a Chevy 2, and when I went to college, I saw a lot of Volkswagens, and some of them were a little fixed up. I even saw a guy with the Blue Streak radial racing tires, and I just sort of, I liked it, and I could afford it, a new car rather than a used car. So I figured I'd buy one, and then my dad said we can get one cheaper by going to Germany straight. So that's sort of what happened.
No, that's cool. And I just like, you hear a lot of people like, I mean, we had a conversation with the Schleys, and they decided they wanted a Volkswagen because they saw a pretty girl in one. And so they went and bought one. And that's also what they could afford.
I'd never ridden in one. I'd never driven one. I had no experience. I just sort of liked that little guy.
Yeah, they're fun. I've got a 71 Notch that I'm just really enjoying driving. They're just a hoot.
And a little side note about the Schleys. They didn't set out to buy a Volkswagen.
No.
They were looking at a Dodge Charger or something, or
What's this,
a
like
hot
a-
rod Dodge.
Dodge
Dart.
Dodge
There
Dart
you
with a
go,
413, blah,
413
yep.
cubic inch. So somebody
15 and
luckily
16.
grabbed them both and went, wait a minute, and pointed them towards the Volkswagen. So,
Yep.
and we're very happy that they did,
So
By the way, if you haven't been to the Schley Museum, you need to come.
give them a call. It'll blow your mind. We're gonna ask Rick about a question we have right now on everybody who's tuned in. Hey, subscribe, visit us. You won't miss a minute. And thank you for being here.
Kevin wants to know, are there any DKP going to Mexico stories safe enough for you two?
DKP
boy.
going to Mexico?
Oh, boy. Well,
Car babe.
Well, There's a shorter little story, and I wasn't there. But Bunch went to Ensenada with and there's a picture somewhere that I have. I didn't bring it, of Bunch split his drawers. You remember that? Sitting on the rocks. And I think there might have been some drinking going along.
No.
And yeah, just a little bit. And so that's one Mexico story. My Mexico story is long and involved, and I don't really need to tell it today because this is about Mr. Bunch, not about me taking the tar baby to Mexico City. But we'll talk about that someday. So,
do you remember how exactly did we split our britches on the rocks?
I don't remember.
Hence the drinking.
Go back to the might have been some drinking
I
involved.
remembered then. I don't remember.
There was a conversation we had briefly before. So as we were getting set up, we're just kind of chatting a little bit about a football game, and the Schleys. Oh, the applause from the Schleys in the background and the peanut gallery. Here we go. This must have been really one-sided.
Oh boy, yeah, we got our tails handed to us in a football game.
Why?
Well, because they had the best
cheated.
players from modern day. They had Hodge and Harmon and all the big boys, And when I'm the quarterback or a wide receiver, we're losing. We're definitely losing football. The good thing is, after the football game, we went back and there might have been some drinking going on there too. So, lot of
great
fun.
time. Paul says it was a great time. I mean, these two are moaning in agony over here. Paul says it was a great time. Paul Schley.
Yeah, because he won.
He won. He won like a lot. Was it a lot? Would you say a lot?
Oh, it was a lot to a very little.
Ron's a defensive back.
When we have a play, we said, let's throw it to Ron. So he thought, gee, we'll tackle him.
Oh my gosh. So he's over there telling us that he was a defensive back because you can't
It's a
necessarily
wonder
hear.
I'm not
And
crippled.
they threw it to him so he could intercept it so they could all pounce on him. They did. I'm sorry. Not really.
The
Thank you. That's
Panzers-
fabulous.
The Panzers had a lot of fun. Remember, we were 16 to 21. We were always going to miniature golf. We were going to the drag strips, Lions, OCIR, Carlsbad. We were playing football, playing frisbee. We played foursquare inside the clubhouse. We were always doing stuff. By the way, forgot to tell you that our first sponsor was Schneider Motors in Anaheim.
That's what this
That
is
was
about.
short-lived because we outgrew it. So we was able to collect enough money for monthly rent to rent a room at the Pickwick Hotel in downtown Anaheim on Anaheim Street. And we had a glass frontage on the road. And so that's where we put all our trophies. But we would play foursquare in there. We'd have all our chairs set up. We'd have here's the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, Ron and Mike Johnston and the guys. We'd have meetings.
Jerry Harmon and Craig Foster.
It was the meetings were very formal. I have still the actual attendance records of every person that came, every meeting, whether they came, whether they were late or whether they were not, whether they're fines for different things. We were very organized for a very young group of people, and we did not allow females in the club as a member because of the obvious reason that a bunch of young guys and some girls with something might not happen very well. But it did end up later on. There are two ladies that made it somehow later years. Janet Hofstedler
Sue Miller.
and Sue Miller. Never have found them because their names have probably changed from marriage, but two did finally make it with very nice cars in those days.
So let's go back to that. I was running the meeting, And she, meaning Sue Miller, was a pledge. And I don't know how it all happened because I thought we weren't going to let that happen. Anyway, so she went outside while we had to vote on a member, and my instructions to the membership was the worst thing that can happen is if one of you start dating her and all of a sudden then you guys have a breakup. It's like, not good. So think about that. Don't do it. Well, we voted Sue Miller in, and it wasn't a month later that Craig Foster started taking her out.
See,
And
I
they had
came
a
in.
breakup.
I came into my club already married, and now as the president of my club, like I'm going to date my husband. But other than that, like I think we're good. There's some rules, right? There's gotta be
None
some
of us
rules.
were married, and none of us were looking to get married.
Pete Dayton was married.
Oh yeah, I remember his
Pete
wife.
Dayton was.
Oh, please.
Oh, seriously.
No, I believe you. I just, oh, please. Okay, so I have a question on here. Who had a
Chris.
sign on the side of his car that said "hurt me"? No?
I don't know.
Why would it say "hurt me"?
I have him pictured. I'm trying to think of his name. Give me the list here.
Who was told no fog lights allowed on a DKP car?
Mark Thurber.
Mark Thurber, he was the T in fat. Flemming, Aronson, and Thurber.
Who had the nickname Ralph, and how did he get it? The giggle kills me. I love this.
Oh boy.
I know these are loaded questions. I probably shouldn't be answering. Okay, so I saw a video recently on like Facebook or something, and these guys stood in a line with kazoos, and they snapped a rubber band against the person in front of them, their calf. And if they didn't react, they got to go back to the line and not be snapped again. If they did react, it made kazoo noises. And it's hilarious because one starts making the kazoo noise, everybody starts laughing, and all the kazoo noises are making. Where did we get kazoos? Huh.
I don't remember.
We don't.
We
This-
did have.
But ask him. You already alluded to it. Who said what's with the boom boom?
What's with the
No,
boom
that
boom?
was the manager of the hotel.
The Pickwick
Like,
Hotel
he'd come in and say, "What's with the boom boom?" And we'd be
playing
bouncing,
Foursquare.
bouncing off the walls with Foursquare. And he was a German guy, so he was with the boom boom.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Um,
I was afraid
just
to
a
ask that
short-
question.
A short note is during this, at least during this time that I started, and most of the time, is the Vietnam crisis was going on, and a lot of our guys, Jim Holmes and myself, and a lot of guys had to go off to the service, and we, as far as I know, we only lost one member, Bob Moore.
Bob Moore, yeah.
And unfortunately, when he left us, he went right straight to Vietnam, and within 3 days, he was gone.
Mm.
And there's a plaque in his honor over here in the
Schley Museum.
Schley Museum. There's a DKP glass case there, and his award is in there for being a member of the club. So anyway.
Yeah,
So-
while not being the only Cal Look club, DKP is probably credited as being the oldest. When did the Deke start?
77.
In case everybody didn't hear, that's 77. We've got the peanut gallery, and sometimes you can't hear them when I listen back later. So DKK started in, the Deeks started in 77.
Anybody have any questions while we're
Yeah.
Well, and I also thought it'd be interesting to just kind of like, as you reflect on this, like Volkswagen's, this culture, it brings people together in ways I never thought, right? And what do you value the most about your experiences here, and what's on the table, and what's on the table over there that we didn't set out? Like there's so much here in history, and you're pretty pivotal in that with this club and this community. Like what do you think back and say, like, these are moments that were like amazing? And you gave your top 3, right? Like your wife, very smart man, your club, and your time in Germany. What does that all like culminate to, like your experience, and what you're thankful for, or what you wouldn't change, or what maybe you would change?
Wow.
That's a loaded question.
I guess I would like to have spent more time with the Panzers in the early days than having to go. I mean, I really enjoyed living in Europe for a couple of years,
It
but
was Frankfurt, right?
no, it was Wiesbaden.
Oh, Wiesbaden.
But I had to leave DKP too early. I missed out. I was on the good part, the pre-cal look, I guess, but I missed out on all the other part. My car, all I had was chrome rims, hubcaps, tinted windows, muffler. I had a polished Velocity stack on my carburetor, and I had a blue Bosch coil.
Blue coil.
I mean, that's about all number one that I could afford. But we didn't know about 48 IDs and all the other things that were going on in motors in the very first couple of years. So until this group took over and morphed things into a totally different.
We became a hot rod club.
Became a hot rod club.
Through the efforts of Don Crane and both his parents. My lovely Don Crane story is we'd be going out to buy parts and his dad would go, here, give him a few $100. And his mom would stop him on the other side of the house going out, do you have any money? No. So she'd give him a couple $300 and we went and bought carburetors and went to Impy, and that's a whole nother story, but he's back. You know, he came back and he's a full-fledged member of the club, and he has a little bit of a hot rod motor now.
Oh man,
The
that
car
car
has
pulled
now.
up and I was like, ooh, I hear Volkswagen. And then it went romp, romp, romp right before he turned off. And I was like, yeah.
Mr. Bunch still has what we ran for an exhaust system back in the days, which was extremely loud. And if you're following Bunch in a caravan or going somewhere with him and
Try
he
to keep
goes
up.
under the overpass with you, wah-bah! He never fails to signal that he's there. So
Set
Yeah.
off car alarms, huh?
yeah,
Since I've had some health issues lately, my driver is over there, Tom.
Thanks, Tom, for being here
and,
today.
yeah. Thank you,
And
Tom.
he's having fun taking care of my little car because it goes out around the block once in a while. And sometimes my neighbors call and say, are you driving your car? I said, no, it's just like they can not only hear it, but it goes.
Yeah, all around the block, even if you're on the other side.
Yeah. He's gotten caught a couple times out there running around, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
well, back in the early days, we got tickets for too low in front. We got tickets for loud exhaust. We got tickets for no front license plate. Now that's all gone out the
Our
window.
stickers would be, we started them in the wind wing. And the police would write us a ticket because it was blocking
Vision.
our view. So then it went back here to into the window. But right now mine are in the wind wing, the way it used to be. They would write us a ticket for anything.
Yeah.
We used to love to put little yellow bulbs for the running lights, and they didn't like the yellow bulbs, so they write you a ticket for a yellow bulb.
We were being creative.
Hey, I've got a question from some guy, Dean Kirsten.
Oh.
Dino.
How do you say that? Dean what?
I think it's Kirsten. Whatever happened to the top 10 board?
Oh, whatever happened to
You
it?
mean the actual board? That's
I
a
believe
good
he's referring to
question.
the actual board.
Yeah, all we have is this photograph of it
It should be in here.
with my name misspelled. It's got two M's. There's nothing chocolatey about my last
Two
name. No
M&Ms.
mess
Oh
in
my
it. Oh, well.
goodness.
Oh well.
Good question.
At the time, I
Candy-coated.
was numero cuatro below Gregg, Don Crane, Mahaffey, and I built all three of their motors. My own fault.
And then I think it's SAM, Sam. So, Greg, did you bring your bug from Germany?
Did I bring my bug?
He wants to know if you bought it.
I
from
did buy.
Germany,
Oh, I'm
but
sorry. Yes,
Yeah,
you
I
didn't
did.
bring it back.
Yeah.
I-
What happened to it? Did you bring it
Okay.
back from Germany?
So I bought it from Germany. They shipped it over on a boat, and I picked it
Right.
up.
Right.
And then when I broke the axle, I had to sell all the parts, and I sold it to a friend of Pam's. She was a police officer, and I've lost track of it. I never really went to the trouble to try to find it. So I tried to buy one that was as close as I could get, especially in the color, and then make it the rest look like it.
There you go.
That's about all.
Some of those I'm afraid to ask the question. I feel like this is just like this huge setup. And I'm like, okay, who had the checkered bra? Oh, good Lord, it was the front of the car bra. Oh, I feel so much better.
This one's funny. Who never bought a cup of coffee when he went to coffee shops?
Brubaker
Yeah, that's his nickname, Jim Brooks.
and Jim Brooks, and he would mix raspberry and grape jelly in his water so he could have a fruit drink rather than spending the money to buy a fruit drink.
Remember, we were young and cheap. Or he'd take ketchup and make himself a tomato juice.
Oh, I had a friend that, like, as he was going through college, it was McDonald's had like 25-cent hamburgers and 35-cent cheeseburgers on Wednesday. He'd go buy a couple of those and then he would fill the rest of his to-go bag with ketchup, and he made soup out of it all week long with the ketchup. Put himself through college.
Did you get this? Does that show?
It's kind of small.
Okay. Well, this is a picture of the club and all their trophies
Our club display at the Bug Inn.
at the Bug Inn with this
Purple cloth or
purple
burgundy.
burgundy cloth back in 70 something.
Mm.
Very cool.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about concerning the way the status of VW is today and the club and other clubs?
Or what do you want to see? Like, what do you want to see happen in the Volkswagen scene in the upcoming years? Like, what are we missing? What do we need to do?
Well, I wish that the Panzers would have more activities. But you got to remember, we were 18 to 21, 16 to 21. The second group were right in their 30s. This group is 40s and 50s and maybe even a little
And
bit
beyond.
more. They have families, they have careers, they have homes. It's a whole different thing. So we had nothing to do other than have 2 meetings a week and do activities and have fun because we were young punk kids. Now they're grown adults with families and everything. And so the whole physicality of the club has changed. And for that reason, they can't meet as often and they can't. And the other unfortunate thing is some of these guys have such large engines, they don't want to drive long distances to go to different activities.
Some of us do.
Some do.
Thanks for
but
coming to San Diego.
Some don't, and it's a dichotomy with the problem of trying to get everybody together.
You know, one thing we've talked a lot about is in these meetings, in these get-togethers, is how do we keep the sport alive? How do we keep the Volkswagen scene alive? And like, how do we invigorate some youth? Like, what are your thoughts on like, how do we get youth involved and feeling part of the scene and feeling all the things we did at 16 to 20 years old, right?
That's a hard thing for the youth because I have 2 other antique vehicles. I have a 1938 Lincoln and a 1957 Chevy Cameo truck. And I'm in the Lincoln Club, I'm in the Chevy Club, I'm in the Vintage Chevrolet Club, and I'm in the Volkswagen Club. And I'm in the Wood Carvers Club, I'm in the Rock and Mineral Club of Anaheim, I'm in the Woodworkers Club, I'm in the Wood Turners Club. And almost every club has a problem of getting young people in it.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because of this thing.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to do this.
The Game
So our
Boy.
generation, our fathers had abilities, woodworking, different things. In school, we had wood shop, metal shop, leather
Auto
shop,
shop.
auto shop, plastic shop. None of that's happening now. So the kids are tending toward electronics. And also, vehicles now and parts cost a lot of money. So to own an antique car, almost all of my clubs that I'm at, we don't have any young people coming in because they can't afford to get in.
Priced out.
They just can't afford to get in. And Volkswagen is still very affordable, and yet it's not. You can't buy one of these things for under $30,000 easily unless you buy a junker. And then you've got to buy all the stuff. So it's hard for a young person to get into it, and because of our economy right now is not doing so well. So it's difficult to get the young people. We have had 3 or 4 new members in the club, but they're certainly not new people. They're in their 40s and 50s. So we're
Wait, 50 is not young anymore?
Still, we're not getting in people in the 20s and the 30s. They're just not coming around. That generation is not into this, and not only financially, but they're just so electronic minded with this computer thing, and it's difficult to get new people in. I mean, we have car shows. I have the Chevy Club has a barbecue picnic once a year, and we get new members. Again, they're mostly 40s and 50s. The young people just don't seem to be able to participate.
Well, and one of the reasons is we're talking about a car that sold for anywhere from $1,300 to about $1,700 when they're new. No, they're not the hot rods that we have now, but escalating costs for parts and anymore, it's like it's expensive to build a good. I wrote a column about if you want a cow look bug, go find one and give the guy the 30 grand or the 35 grand, because if I handed you that kind of money, you'd have to find a car to do it, and you'd have to do all it too, and you'd run out of money before it was done. So it's imperative that these cars get passed on to younger people. And I don't know what the solution is to that, but anyway, that's a time for another topic. I wanted to tell you that you are an icon in the club scene. You are. I know you shush it off, and you're going back to the European Bug-In this year, thanks to the fact that your son, Ryan, who's a grown man, is going to go along and be Tom for the time in Europe to help you get around and do it. And I think that's awesome.
Have you been?
The people in Europe. Oh yeah, he's been many times.
I've been 8 times, and my wife likes to bring heavy luggage.
I wasn't going to bring
wait,
it up. But
I didn't know we were married because I like to bring heavy luggage.
And a few years ago, I was better condition than I am now, and so we decided I just can't schlep around these big 50-pounders. It's got to be 50 because anything over than
49.9 pounders.
She has to have many of them, and so
she always looks impeccable.
she does. It's worth it.
It's worth it.
So we asked Ryan to accompany us, and he'll be our man Friday, I guess you'd call him, to help us. He's going to drive and get the luggage and help us get around over there. And Mike has been kind enough to help get us a golf cart and some other things so I can get around.
That would be Mike Walravens, who's one of the promoters.
This will be my ninth trip to Europe.
I've only been
Well,
once.
that leads into a question in the chat. How many DKP members are coming to EBI?
9.
8.
8?
One's back. Fabian backed out.
Oh, 8.
8 are coming. And this is going to be a very special DKP
Mhm.
organized European Bug-In. Every year they have it, which is every 2 years. They have some kind of a special theme. And this year is the cow look, and it includes DKP. The logo's even on their poster, which is a first for us and a first for them. And Russell Ritchie, a very good friend of ours in Scotland, is paying to have several of our club cars come from the United States over there, along with some that he has. And so there should be
The white car.
maybe
Yeah.
a dozen Cowlook
Everybody knows what
cars
that
that are
is.
DKP members' cars, one of which is the only original car left that's never been touched. Molman's.
Yeah, Arnie Molman's.
That's the one original car left from DKP first generation. It'll be there.
It's not a recreation or anything. It's just
not
the
been
original
repainted.
car.
It's nothing.
That's gonna be an
But this,
amazing
so there'll
event.
be eight of us members, and there'll be about a dozen cars, and it's going to be pretty special.
So what's happening is they're all meeting in Wolfsburg. Just imagine the cool picture of the factory in the background with all the Cowlook cars. DFL is throwing a little meet and greet.
That's
on
a
that
German.
Monday.
That's a German club.
Yep. And then they're going to caravan across to Chimay. And they're going to stop at Pat's and some of the things that happen on the way. So it's going to be very cool. It's Russell asked me if he could have Sonny over there, and I'm such a big baby, I can't be without Sonny for 3 or 4 months because it's what it takes.
It's what it takes.
Yeah, it is. I just
I mean, the Vitone car came in by the hair, like just on the hair of my chinny chin at European Bug-In to get unloaded in time because it's set at the port.
yeah. So there's always possibility of issues. Anyway, yes, I'm a big baby. I don't want to send my baby over there, but I will be in attendance, and as will be Mr. Bunch. So I'm warning the Europeans. we're
Here we
coming.
come. Here we come.
Sasha wants to know how many DKP members are overseas. I think I know the answer to this one.
What is it? What do you think it is? 0? Wrong.
No.
We got
Okay,
one
yeah.
in Japan.
Yeah,
Now,
there's
now
3.
Fujitsu, we got Keith
Right.
Soom in England, and we have Fabien Bicasse in France.
Yeah.
So we have 3.
Yep.
2 of those.
Well, see, that was
will be
tricky
at the
because you
show.
did this, and it could have been at 0, and it
is
could have
that
been at 3.
It's a good thing there isn't one.
Sorry. Sorry. Good
Anything
question.
else you'd like to talk about, my friend? Well, we got you on the stage here. We're so
We
happy
were-
to
we
have
weren't-
you.
We weren't hard on you, right? Like we were pretty conversational. And people get intimidated. They think we're gonna like grill them with questions and crazy things and facts, and we just want to have a conversation. So I'm glad you were here. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
We want to thank all of the members of the team here, Rick and Jeffrey and the Schley brothers, of course,
Schley
for
brothers.
allowing us to break into the space here at the museum. And potentially, we're going to go back to the Schley Museum on April 20th.
Don't forget Carbs and Coffee, Happy W's. Carbs and Coffee are coming up on what date?
The 21st, I believe, of April.
April 21st.
And the one April 6th is at the magazine.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. April 6th. And it's in
Yep.
the new location, right, Shin? Yeah.
Yep.
At the Hot VW's, Carbs and Coffee. That'll be great. That's all I got. Thank you,
Anything
everybody,
else?
for having us. Thank you to
Yep.
Paul and Mark for
Yep.
the generous use of your space. It
Yep.
is mind-boggling every time I come in here. Don't forget the red car's mine. Thanks to Jeff and Vicky. They let me ride along with them up from Fallbrook today, so I didn't have to drive the whole way, and it's rainy and yucky outside. I'm going to go back and preach about my sunshine tax. Thank you, Ron.
You bet.
Thank you, Greg.
Amber.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks, Shin, for being here. Thanks, Jeff, for all the organization ahead of time. Really enjoy being here with you all. And subscribe to live, and you won't miss anything.
One last thing. If you come to the museum, you'll have a chance to maybe buy a 1994 pace car Mustang. It's a Schley Brothers
Cobra.
Mustang convertible. So come
Indy,
on
it's
down
an
and
Indy
take a
pace car,
look.
right? Yeah.
Accepting any and all offers. And if you don't get somewhere around 25K or above, don't even bother.
Oh, I'm negotiating right now for a shot of tequila, margarita, and was it 2 beers, Paul? Yeah, 2 beers. Yeah. 3 Cadillac margarita. 3 beers. I'm not driving. We're good. All right. It
Yeah,
is. No,
it
it's
is
an
the
Indy
real
pace car.
thing.
It's ridiculous. And it's red. So not that red car, but this red car is mine. That one, that's up for grabs. 61,000 original miles.
Thanks to everybody.
Thank you all.
Time to play us out.
Woohoo!